Select your character.
Welcome back to Sonic Adventure. Last time we finished off the Knuckles campaign, and now we're going to start playing as Amy Rose. In terms of her appearances in previous Sonic games, she debuted in Sonic CD as a sort of damsel in distress character, though not a very orthodox one. She's pretty much a stalker of Sonic and will do a lot of crazy things in order to follow him, using, for example, occult means like tarot cards to figure out where he is before he gets there so that she can be there before him, in waiting. She did appear in Act 1 of Palm Tree Panic in Sonic CD, if I recall correctly, and also in Stardust Speedway as the prize for a race between Sonic and Metal Sonic, as we can see in those flashbacks right there, although those weren't actually taking place in Stardust Speedway. Her design was a bit different as well. Her dress was green and orange, if I recall correctly, and her hair looked different. Rather than actually looking like hair, it looked more like Sonic spikes, the way they went backwards instead of, forwards and down. That design kind of got adopted by Rosie the Rascal in the Sonic the Hedgehog Archie comic series. I don't read them as often as I should, so I'm not as big on that subject. In terms of playable appearances, this is the first time she appears as playable in Sonic CD in any games. Well, between then and here, I don't even think she appears. And now we kick off her story in this game. The bird that she appears with a lot of the time just kind of flew into her, and this robot came out of nowhere. This robot here is going to be the main antagonist for Amy. His name is Zero, and that is because of his, product number. Eggman has a series of robots called the E100 series, and this is the first robot of that series, being E100, 0 being his name, not another zero tacked onto there. I guess you could also call him Alpha, considering that the other robots are also named after Greek letters. E101 is Beta, E102 is Gamma, and continuing on like that. He doesn't really do much in this first cutscene. I guess to lull you into false sense of security, you just kind of start playing as Amy and looking for Sonic. Of course, after playing the Sonic playthrough, and in order to actually unlock Amy, you have to go through with Sonic a bit, if you're unlocking everyone as Sonic. You'd know where Sonic is, because that's where you meet up with Amy. In terms of her abilities, she's really slow. Very slow. I think she's the slowest character in the game. Her top speed is pretty quick to get to, though. And once you do get to it, if you press the action button, she will slam the ground with her hammer and perform a big acrobatic flip. That is a bit faster than her actual running speed, I think. If you're just standing still and press the action button, she hammers the ground, and it causes a little shock wave, so if you miss an enemy, all is not lost. And her jump is, unlike Sonic and Knuckles and Tails, she doesn't do a spin jump. It's pretty regular, so I don't think you can actually kill enemies with it. In order to kill enemies in midair, you need to press the action button, and that'll cause her to take out her hammer and attack with it. Her hammer also debuted in this game, I believe. It's called the Pico Pico hammer, and I think that's supposed to be based off of the Japanese sound effect for like a squeaky hammer toy. So her hammer is like a squeaky hammer. Although it can do a number to a lot of robots, as we will see later on in the game. Also, I believe if you were to jump, perform her spinning hammer attack in the air, and then hit the ground, she's in her full speed running animation, so you can easily go into the acrobatic attack thing. I guess a sort of faster method of getting to your top speed. And then going further than that top speed because the acrobatic move is faster, I believe. We're just kind of following Sonic for now. And of course, going by the same story beats as him for this first stage. We're gonna go into Twinkle Park. Of course, this means that it's gonna be stuff that we've seen before, but don't worry about it because a bit later we will actually have a stage that Sonic doesn't go into. And of course the robot is back. And Amy gets to squee over Twinkle Park having that special offer for couples getting in for free. One thing that I didn't mention during Sonic's playthrough when he met with Amy, at least I don't recall mentioning it, is the dynamic between them. I like that it's an unorthodox damsel in distress thing. Like, Amy gets in trouble because she chases Sonic into trouble and then gets captured and stuff. But Sonic kind of reluctantly saves her, you know? He doesn't want to have a girlfriend or whatever Amy wants to be for him. He just kind of wants to be free, I suppose. That should be the best word for it. He doesn't want to be tied down, is what I'm trying to say. While Amy here is the one chasing after the guy, instead, you know, of the traditional Mario thing where Mario is the one who tries to save Peach because he likes Peach. At least it's assumed he likes Peach. He gets rewarded with like kisses and stuff, but whatever. Her first stage is Twinkle Park, and it's the last section that Sonic goes through. In terms of her stages, they're pretty platformy, but they have a sort of puzzle spin to them. For example, here we had to press a bunch of switches in order to get through a door that was previously locked. Now that we have pressed the switches, we can get inside. Also, Zero is constantly chasing you through the stages. Well, not constantly. For example, right here, he isn't. But he does appear a lot throughout the stage, and when he does, your goal is to get away from him, like right now. He isn't too difficult to get away from. He isn't faster than Amy. And Amy can use her hammer to attack him and stun him for a little bit. But if you do hit him enough times, he will get kind of angry and start chasing after you non-stop. Another thing with the stages is that they pretty much get to the goal, like Sonic and Tails. Except more like Tails because you have this sort of time limit on you where you can't get caught by Zero. I don't think he can actually like catch you and get you a game over by instantly touching you or something like that. He can make you lose rings though and pretty much kill you. Kind of makes sense because what Eggman is going after isn't really Amy, so he wouldn't really care. He kind of wants to go after the bird instead. This room, very puzzle-y. The puzzles in Amy's campaign are pretty light. For example, that mirror room had reflections where the platforms actually weren't there, so you'd know not to step on those bits in the actual world because they'd turn out to be pitfalls. Stuff like that. Very simple. Also, about Amy's campaign, or at least her stages, Zero likes to warp around a lot. Like sometimes he'll be there and then he'll kind of disappear for a little while and then he'll come back. I guess it's sort of a pseudo jump scare thing that they're trying to do. And sometimes it works. Like in that mirror room, my first time, I got a bit of a jump out of seeing Zero popping out of nowhere. But now that I've played the game a bunch, I pretty much know where Zero's gonna appear, so I know not to get scared. And of course, since Sonic had to chase Amy after she got caught by Zero, Zero is obviously gonna catch us. Kind of makes the whole going through a stage to escape pretty useless. Also a very unorthodox way of escaping or getting to the goal of the stage. Like, it's not a big canister thing that has a bunch of a bunch of animals in it that Eggman will turn into robots. It's just a balloon. And I guess Amy could ride the balloon out of the stage, but it doesn't really make that much sense to me, is all I'm saying. The game skips the cutscene where Amy, like, Zero, I keep wanting to call him Alpha because it's just so fitting, where Amy and Zero are beamed up to the egg carrier. Instead, we just skip to where Amy is captured over here. And now we have Gamma attempting to, I guess, interrogate Amy or something like that. I mean, I obviously know what's gonna happen, but I gotta keep the intrigue up, you know? We also know that Amy tries to protect Gamma later. At least you would if you saw the previous parts or played parts of the game that I'm talking about. But now we actually get to see what Amy and Gamma's alone time is. And we also know that the bird has a Chaos Emerald in it, which is why Gamma was ordered to grab it. I say ordered because, well, he's a robot, obviously. He can't think for himself. I mean, he's just a pile of scrap. It's not like the deepest story in this game and possibly makes me cry. Here we get to see hints of Gamma's story. Kind of him realizing that taking orders from Eggman isn't all that he should do. Like he gains his own sentience thanks to Amy. Which, now that I think about it, actually happens again in the Sonic series. Not really gaining sentience, but kind of coming to a realization. It happens later thanks to Amy. A bit of foreshadowing. The bird is pretty attracted to Gamma and makes Gamma malfunction, I guess. He's getting pretty jittery there. But he ultimately decides on, instead, saving Amy. This, since I played the stories in order, this was a very, what's the word, hyping scene for me. I was pretty young, I guess. And when I saw this scene, I was like, wow, Gamma's actually a pretty cool guy. I can't wait to play as him. It's not often that happens to me, I guess, where I want to play as a playable character that I know comes in later, that I know is also kind of a villain, and it turns out that his story is really cool. I mean, that's a very specific case, so I guess that's why it doesn't happen often. In this room here, there are a couple more cells. If you step on the button that is in front of the respective cell, it will open it up. For some reason the hammer doesn't, although it does handle some buttons later, but whatever. In this room was a black Chow egg. Well, in that cell was, rather. And we can take it with us to the egg carrier's Chow world, but I'm not going to be able to do that yet because in this room you can't escape until you beat this minigame. In order to initiate it, you need to stand on the middle platform and then jump. What the minigame is whack-a-mole. There's a bunch of Sonics and Eggmans that are going to pop up. Depending on which one you hit, you get different points. If you hit a blue Sonic, or regular Sonic as I would call it, you get 100 points. If you hit a yellow Sonic, or Super Sonic as I call it, you get 500 points. If you hit an Eggman, you lose 200 points. So you gotta be careful not to hit them. The game has a bit of luck incorporated in it. For example, sometimes you might not get supersonics all that often, and also the supersonics will only appear for a split second before they go back down. You have to pay attention to sound cues, which, while recording, was kind of an annoyance, I'll say, because the sound was on delay, so the supersonics would pop up before the sound cue appeared, and then I'd hear the sound and be like, oh, I missed that supersonic. But, you know, whatever. It's kind of based on luck. Took me a couple tries. Also, something that might happen, a Sonic might appear next to an Eggman, and since Amy has that sort of shockwave thing when she pounds her hammer, you can hit both the Sonic and the Eggman, getting you a net, you know, point loss of 100 if it was a regular Sonic, or just 300 points if it was a super one. Another thing that might help with the minigame is if you slam your hammer down and then flick the control stick in a different direction, like say you slam it to the one on the very left and then tilt your control stick up. If two Sonics were to appear at those 2 points, you'll hit them both. It'll like count for both Sonics. And we got Amy's only mandatory upgrade, the Warrior Feather. You can use it to perform a spin attack, although it's not very useful. You have to stand still, hold down the action button, and rotate the control stick. And it doesn't have that big of a radius, nor is Amy very mobile while using it. You can't move, and after you're done using it, you get dizzy. So this isn't Legend of Zelda spin attack. This isn't very good. It's also mandatory only in the sense that you need it, well, you need to pass the minigame that gives it to you in order to progress. Unlike Sonic and Knuckles with the Shovel Claw and the Lightspeed Shoes, not respectively, they use those abilities in the stages and even in the adventure field in order to actually progress with the game. With Amy's Warrior Feather here, there's never a reason, well, never a mandatory reason to actually use the spinning hammer attack. At least, I don't recall any. If there are some, and if there are any uses for it, because I find it pretty useless in a practical sense as well, I would like to know, because as of now, doing a spinning hammer attack means nothing to me. This last Chow Garden has a bunch of kind of Eggman-esque things in it. For example, the lounge chairs that he has in his pool, that kind of big satellite thing in the center. And in order to get in and out, you need to take a teleporter. There are also a couple more teleporters that will take you to the other Chow Gardens, but I don't find that very useful right now. Instead, I'll just take the one going out. Also, if you noticed, I got the Black Chow out by throwing him at something. That's the other way you can get Chow out, than, you know, rather than just shaking them for a bit and then letting them down. And I actually got one with a smiling face, which I am very happy with. I also kind of drowned him for a bit, but let's not talk about that. Next time we'll be getting into Amy's second stage, the Hot Shelter.